Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie, and I'm just going to tell you in this video another little update that in the Celeste Rivas case. So this is the case, of course, this young girl very sadly found deceased in a Tesla, in the front bonnet, the front, as they call it, of a Tesla. Now, then the owner of this Tesla is a singer called David, but spelt D4VD, a singer on the cusp of stardom. But the problem is he's a grown man. Well, apart from the fact that she's deceased, of course, as well. And it turns out that she was likely his girlfriend. But the problem is she was only 13. It seems, when she started seeing David, and he is a grown man. And then, of course, poor Celeste, disappeared. She was reported missing. She was finally found in this car that had been towed away, that was in like a place where they tow cars to. And the car was registered to David, the singer. And now we're sort of, but this was a couple of months ago, but so far he still has not been arrested, even though, of course, all the evidence is pointing towards him, because, you know, when a dead body is found in your car, it's likely that you knew something about it. And then it's unclear why the car was towed away. Was it parked badly deliberately so it would be towed away? Or was that a total mistake? Or was it somebody else who was driving it? You know, there's all these questions. And when was Celeste actually still alive? We don't know. We've not had a timeline, an official timeline. And the only thing really that law enforcement has told us for certain is there is a homicide. It is being treated now. They have said it's being treated as a homicide, although the cause of death has not been released. David is considered a person of interest, maybe even a suspect. There is a grand jury going on at the moment, and it's widely thought, though not by any means certain, that imminently David will be arrested and charged for some sort of offence, whether it be murder, whether it be concealment of a body. It's said that the body was dismembered. Again, that's not been confirmed, though, really, from the police. So, you know, so much that hasn't been confirmed. So until something moves in this case, we won't know details. But a couple of days ago, I released a video to tell you that in David's home was found like an incinerator by a private investigator called Steve Fisher. We're going to have a look at what he's got to say in a moment. And now it's coming out that not only an incinerator was found at David's home unused, but the thing is, why would you have an incinerator at your home? I mean, you've got to wonder that, haven't you? Who has apparently these incinerators are used on farms, things like that. But, you know, it's quite unusual. You know, it reaches very high heat, enough heat to incinerate a body, but it wasn't used. So it's important to remember it had not been used. Now, also, we're learning that apart from the incinerator, there was a chainsaw as well at David's property that Steve Fisher, this private investigator, he has been to and he's seen it with his own eyes. Again, unused. But you've just got to wonder. I mean, it could have been something to do with a video, because David makes some very strange videos. You know, some of his songs are quite dark, and, you know, talk about death and blood and God knows what. So, you know, just feeling this case, when it all comes out, what is going to be the truth of it all? Did he deliberately murder Celeste, or was it some sort of, I don't know, strange video that went wrong? Or maybe it's nothing to do with him. Some people are saying, no, it could be nothing to do with him. It could be one of his entourage that put Celeste in that car, even though it was David's car, but it could be somebody else who had access to the keys. So anyway, I say all that's to come out, but I just wanted to show you this video, which is showing Steve Fisher talking to Brian Entin, who's a very good reporter at News Nation, and saying what he found. Now, I think Steve is a very reliable person, a trustworthy person to listen to. I don't think he would say it if it wasn't true. So let's see. And it's just a question of what we believe, I suppose. Let's go back to the beginning. So this is Banfield on News Nation, and Ashley Banfield may be taking some time off for Christmas and New Year. And it's Brian. I would definitely recommend you subscribing to News Nation and to Brian Entin on his own personal channel.
The trunk of a Tesla that was found abandoned in the Hollywood Hills and discovered the dismembered body of teenage runaway Celeste Rivas Hernandez. There has been a ton of speculation. There has been a ton of suspicion, and all of it has centered around the singer named David. It's pronounced David, but it's spelled with a 4. You can see right down there.
Yeah, because he's so pretentious, this guy. He's a pseudo-intellectual, pretentious guy. But anyway, he was on the brink of becoming very, very famous. He had like a world tour, really, planned. He's had to cancel all that, obviously. He's been quietly removed from anything that any of his music was on. And looking at Celeste there, I think, we just have to remember that Celeste, as far as anyone knows, the last time she was seen alive was 13 years old, or when she started going out with this guy. So very young a child. She also, as I mentioned in the last video about this case, she never smiles. She's not smiling on any of her photos, which is unusual for a girl of that age, isn't it? She's been described as a troubled teen. Maybe she did run away with David, and it would be very easy for someone like David to turn the head of a young girl like this. He had money, obviously, he's a singer, he's big on social media, etc. Very easy to turn Celeste's head, bless her. But yeah, she never looks very happy whenever you see her. Anyway, so whatever happened in the end to Celeste, all we know for sure really is she is deceased. So, that's sad enough in itself, isn't it? And as the details come out, I just feel like there's really bad things going to come out in this case. Anyway, so we're all waiting because of David's sort of, his dark lyrics and things like that. He's obviously got an interest in sort of horror and things that aren't too good. He's got this dark side to him, very sort of horrific side to him, some of his songs, some of his videos. And to think that this poor young girl was caught up in it all is really quite sad, isn't it? So anyway, we're waiting with bated breath. I feel like if he's going to be indicted after this grand jury, I think it's going to happen quite soon now, maybe, hopefully anyway, because he's just walking around free for all we know. He needs to be, I don't know, he's got to be involved in it somehow, because that was his car. Then there was a mysterious trip that he made in the middle of the night. Now the bloody incinerator in his home and the chainsaw, even though they've not been used. Why? What is going on with this man?
On your screen, the Tesla was his, and Celeste was his underage girlfriend, and he has not been seen in public since his world tour. It was abruptly scrapped. He hasn't said a word in public about any of this. And now comes a new bombshell report from TMZ that David will likely face charges early in the new year. They and also us, we have reported on a grand jury that's secretly been happening. There's been these hearings with evidence. They've been going on for weeks. And TMZ says the prosecutor in charge believes that David did have a hand in his girlfriend's death. This has been ongoing, and there's been so many different moving pieces to all of it. I'm joined once again by veteran private investigator Steve Fisher, who is
a veteran private investigator. You think that's sort of a compliment, and then you might be thinking, oh, but Steve is a very good private investigator. He gets involved in a lot of missing persons cases. I follow him on X. He quite often actually finds people's remains and things. He was instrumental in finding Hannah, can't remember her surname, the girl from Hawaii, who, worried everyone to death just because she was deciding to take some time out for herself. And there was a massive sort of hunt for her, and people thought that something had happened to her. Her father actually took his own life through guilt, feeling guilt over it all. Anyway, Steve was instrumental in finding her. So he's been instrumental in the Sebastian Rogers case, in sort of dispelling, debunking all the crap that's put around by At Night Creative Media and Dog the Bounty Hunter and Nick the Hat and all the people that just not one of them has got a normal name. Anyway, so he's been instrumental in a lot of things. I think he's reliable, up to a point as anyone is, because just the same, he's more on the inside than I am, for example. He's obviously been contracted to actually have been allowed in the house. He's been contracted, hasn't he, by somebody to do something. And I think it might have been the landlord of the property, because it's David was renting the property from what I can gather. Anyway, let's hear what he's got to say.
He's been on this story really since almost the very beginning, uncovered a ton of leads, clues, evidence, been in Los Angeles, breaking new developments all along. So Steve, it's good to see you tonight. You were hired by the owner of the home that David was renting, and you actually went inside the home. What sort of was there any potential evidence? Did you see anything that really stood out to you?
Yeah, well, so we announced previously that we found a burn cage incinerator there, for one. And another thing I can tell you tonight is that
Yeah, so the burn cage, that was the first significant thing he mentioned. And now he's going to tell us that also in there was a chainsaw.
With that, we found a chainsaw, brand new. It was with the incinerator. And there's no purpose for a chainsaw to be at this rental house. They're certainly not in charge of, trimming the trees or anything.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, people do have chainsaws in their houses, and it is normally for that purpose that he's talking about. If you've got a big garden and you do the trees and bushes and things yourself, you might have a chainsaw. Personally, I would never have a chainsaw in my house. It just gives me the creeps just to think about it, because something that can inflict that sort of damage, you don't really want anywhere near your house, do you? But anyway, that's me, and there'll be people out there who do their own gardening and things, and they have got a chainsaw. But David's not one of those. I mean, you can just tell by looking at David, he doesn't look like the person who does the gardening, does he? And it's not his home either. It's a rented place. Why would he have a chainsaw? Now, it could be to do with the video. Some of his videos, music videos, involve props and things like that. Could have been for that. And we also have to remember that apparently, according to Steve, although these things were found in the house, they have not been used.
We can't say exactly, it was unused, just like the incinerator, but I think, it could go to show some intent of what this plan was, because whatever happened here, it wasn't a finalized plan. She was not meant to be left in that Tesla on Bluebird Avenue. And so, the plan got upended.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about the burn box in a second. I think that's what is that what you called it, a burn box?
Burn cage.
Burn cage.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to say, you've got to if you put yourself in David's shoes, you can see why he might have panicked if something happened to Celeste. I mean, also remember, it is being treated as a homicide, because there was some, there was initially some sort of speculation that maybe she'd had a drug overdose and they'd hid her in their car because they didn't want it to come out. But it doesn't seem that way. It seems like it is a homicide. The other thing is, imagine David, there he's on the cusp, literally on the brink of massive fame. He started off on YouTube, or social media, TikTok, I think actually started off on, and he's gradually, not that gradually, quite quickly become famous, got popular, been signed up, and then suddenly he's doing like a European tour. He was due to come to Spain, he was due to go to Ireland, he was, he had he had a tour of America planned and then a European tour. He's literally on the brink of super stardom, and then something happens with this girl that we don't know what happened. He won't want to get found out for going out with an underage girl. There's all this going on about the Epstein files and this, that, and the other. He'll know about that. He won't like that. And there he is, going into a mad panic. So I'm not sure why they would put her in the car, and how they let it be towed away, unless it was deliberate, but probably not. Maybe probably like they're just thickos, they didn't think it out properly. I agree with Steve there. I don't think this is a thought out plan. I think something's happened and it's like knee-jerk reactions, like getting the burn cage, getting the chainsaw, perhaps, with the thought of doing something with Celeste's body. But this will all come out as time goes on.
Okay. But first of all, I want to get to the chainsaw, because I don't think I've heard that before, that there was a chainsaw inside the home. Where was it?
It was in the garage, and it had not been used. It still had the protective shield over the chain itself. But there it is with a burn cage, and you got to wonder what this plan was, or what the plan could have been, and it's troubling, because there's really no, just like the burn cage, there's no purpose for that house,
So the chainsaw, he was renting the house, correct? Because it's the owner who hired you?
Yeah, actually he wasn't. It was Josh Marshall, his manager. The owner, one of the reasons I got hired is because the owner was trying to figure this out. He didn't know who David was. He had never heard of David before. He thought Josh Marshall was living in the house with his family.
And did the owner confirm that
That's interesting, isn't it? So actually the house is rented to his manager, not to David. And the owner of the house, according to Steve here, thought that his manager was living in the house with his family.
the chainsaw was not his?
Yes, it's definitely not the owner's. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I've rented a lot of houses, why you would have a chainsaw in the middle of LA when you're renting a house. I'm just trying to think of like a reason for that. It seems kind of strange.
Yeah, it is strange because, first of all, to use a chainsaw takes a little bit of training not to hurt yourself. And listen, they're not responsible for any of that, taking care of the, outside the property or anything. So what is the purpose? And then when you couple it with not just the incinerator, but now a deceased, 14-year-old in a Tesla that's been parked at that property, it becomes really troubling. And
of course, yeah. So each, if you had a chainsaw, well, maybe you could explain that away. If you had a burn cage, maybe you could explain that away. And if there was a dead body in your car, maybe you could explain that away. But if you put all those three things together, that's difficult to explain away, isn't it? I think he is creepy, this guy. I'm sorry, I just do. He gives me a very bad vibes coming off him. And I didn't, after seeing him being interviewed, I don't like how intellectual he thinks he is, but actually he isn't. I think he's exactly that sort of man that would appeal to a young girl, because anyone of his own age would see through him in a moment.
Hopefully there's going to be some justice here soon. It's been going on a long time.
Yeah, it seems like it's really dragged on. In terms of the burn cage, I'm not really familiar with that. What is it? Describe to me, like, what is a burn cage?
So it's literally it's a steel cage that it can withstand temperatures up to 1,600 degrees, and they're used a lot on like farms to incinerate everything from trash to animals, and to break everything down. And it actually, the advertising on it is, if you go to your YouTube page, it says burns at 1,600 degrees. Well, when human cremations are done at 1,400 degrees. So this has the ability to literally cremate a person if you wanted to, and makes you wonder what the intent was.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our...
So, there you are. What do you think about it? Why do you think that David would have had this sort of combination of a chainsaw and a burn cage in his property? Or say in his property, it's actually rented to his manager. Is his manager in on whatever has happened to Celeste? Did David ask his manager for help? What were the reasons that Celeste is dead? As I say, it's definitely been declared a homicide by the police, so it's not an accidental drug overdose, as far as we know at the moment. So yeah, it's all speculation at the moment because we don't know anything for certain. I hope that very, very soon some charges are laid in this case. And Celeste's family can hopefully get to find out what happened to her, and eventually, of course, will David confess? If let's imagine just for a minute, total speculation because it's all alleged, that David is complicit in the death of this young girl, and he decides to confess. Or would he decide to confess? He's got so much at stake, hasn't he? Why do these people do it? There he is with the world at his feet, really. Literally on the brink of superstardom. And something's happened. And there was speculation that Celeste might be pregnant. And did he not want it all to come out? But I think it's been said that she wasn't pregnant. So, there's no proof, there's no substance behind that rumour. Not yet anyway. So, yeah, of course we are casting around in the dark until law enforcement come out and tell us more and give us a timeline, and we see some arrests, hopefully soon. So in the meantime, poor Celeste, I hope she's at peace. And this poor girl, she didn't get much of a life, did she? And it seems like the life she had was troubled. As I say, I've not seen a smile on one of the photos that I've seen of her. She's always got this sort of enigmatic look. Just reminds me of this sort of Mona Lisa type look where it's very inscrutable, isn't it? You can't see what she's thinking, bless her. Most young girls, and maybe they're not happy, but they do smile, don't they, on their photos and things, happy or not. But it's Celeste, very very enigmatic. Her face just never looked that happy. Makes you wonder why, doesn't it? What was going on that she never looked so happy at all? Even when she was with David, even in the photos you see of them together, she never looks sort of that happy or smiley, does she? Anyway, God bless to Celeste. So let's see what happens. Please don't forget to subscribe, press like, press notifications, and then you'll find out whenever anything new comes out about this case. Thank you for watching. Take care. And until I see you again, may your God go with you. Bye.